The boys are back in town. Over the last few years, we have seen female domination of the World Championship of Public Speaking. Since 2020, all but one of the world champions have been women, and the last 2 years, the top three have all been women. Well, now this year, the top three all men again. So it's really swings and roundabouts with these kind of things. And also, as well as having 3 men in the top 3 places, all 3 are also outside of North America. And this is unusual in the World Championship of Public Speaking as well. North America always perform really, really well at this level. So to see them not make the podium at all, to see it be 3 men after the past few years of being 3 women, we've got a little bit of a mix-up, we've got a shake-up, we've got something new going on this year. And what I'm going to do over these next 3 videos is I'm going to look at and analyze each of these top 3 winning speeches. Now, disclaimer here, we are not going to be talking about this in terms of judging. I'm not going to be saying, well, you know what, this speaker finished 3rd, but really I think this other speaker should have finished 3rd, or I think they should have finished higher. We're not talking about personal opinions of the judging, because if you ask 10 Toastmasters, you're going to get 17 different opinions on how the world final should have finished. The only people who matter have already made their decision. The judges on the day have already picked their top 3. That's who we have as the top 3. So instead of the what ifs and the why fors, let's just look at that top 3 and go, great, here's the top 3 from 2025. What can we learn from this top 3 that we all as Toastmasters and speakers can learn and improve from when we go into the 25-26 season? And we're going to start today by looking at the 3rd place finish. I'm going to double check his name just to make sure I'm absolutely getting this right. So it's Allen Ang Boon Kiat. And I thought this was quite I'm going to say a simple speech, and I don't mean that in a derogatory way at all. It was a simple speech in terms of it was a simple topic, but he performed it in a way that brought that simple topic to life. It's a speech about following your dreams. We've heard a following your dream speech so many times in the World Championship of Public Speaking. But I think what Allen was able to do was he was able to look at this follow your dreams from a slightly different slant, bring his personality and quirks into it. And I think we had a little bit of a plot twist at the end of the speech. As always, I put the link to the actual speech in the video description of these analysis speeches. So if you haven't seen the speech already, go and watch it. It's only 7 minutes long. It's not going to take much out of your day. And then you're going to have the full context for what we're looking at and what we're describing in this speech. And we're focusing on what Allen did well to bring this topic to life. And at the end of the video, I'm going to have a couple of my ideas and suggestions for what could have made this speech even better. Allen might want to compete next year, and he might be aiming for a little bit higher than 3rd place. What could he have done that might have just squeaked him up those rankings slightly? Now, quick disclaimer, I'm using the footage provided by Toastmasters International. I do not claim ownership of this footage. The use of this footage is for informational and educational purposes only. And we have so much to learn from Allen Ang Boon Kiat's speech. Keep dreaming.
I make a bold decision to give myself a nickname, Michael. Michael Ang. As I told my aunt about it, she said, yeah, that's what I have been telling your father, to name you after someone called Michael. You know, the guy who wears an orange bandana? Michelangelo from the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
So this is one of Allen's first bits of humor that comes into his speech. And what we have here is a little bit of the humor of misdirection. So Allen is talking about he had his idol Michael Jordan, that he decides he's going to name himself Michael, and then his aunt comes in and says, oh good, I think you should name yourself Michael after Michelangelo. And you're thinking, oh well Michelangelo, the famous painter, yeah, you know, that's someone famous to name after. No, we're not talking about Michelangelo the painter. We're talking about Michelangelo the turtle. So we have this nice little bit of misdirection. And the way that Allen delivers this, he delivers this in this kind of serious way. His aunt says, yes, you should be named after Michelangelo. with the orange bandana. And this is the first, wait, orange bandana, that doesn't seem quite right. And he keeps it deadpan until he delivers the line, Teenage Ninja Mutant Turtle. So this is in the first minute of Allen's speech, and he's getting that laugh. If you can get a laugh from your audience in the first 60 seconds of any speech, never mind at the World Championships, you're going to get the audience on side, you're going to start building that connection, and they're going to start listening to what you have to say next.
Of 13 years old, I had this wild dream of becoming the first Bruneian to play in the NBA. As I grew to 5'5", I told myself, one more foot, and I will be able to play on this world stage.
One more foot. When you say one more, it doesn't sound like much, does it? But of course, we know that 1 foot is a massive difference between being a professional basketball player and not being a basketball player at all, pretty much. And again, Allen has this sort of very sincere way of expressing the humor. He goes, if I can just grow 1 more foot. And he sounds like he really believes, yes, I can just grow 1 more foot. And that's what really sells the humor. He doesn't do it in this kind of wink, wink, nod, nod, if I can just grow 1 more foot. He goes back to almost that childhood naivete of, yes, I can just grow 1 more foot. And that's what really sells the humor here. So again, we've got a follow-up laugh. We've got the Michelangelo gag that came in about 20 seconds before, and then we've got that follow-up laugh of I can grow 1 foot more. And this is the secret to humor in a speech. You don't just want to do a one and done. Here's a pun, and then we're going to move on to something else. Humor is about momentum. And when you layer your humor and you stack it on top of each other, it makes the individual parts of the humor funnier than if you just deliver them by themselves. Humor is greater than the sum of its parts. If you have 3 okay punchlines delivered at random points in your speech, you'll get probably a chuckle for each one. But if you take those same 3 punchlines and you layer them up in a 30 to 60 second compilation, by the time you get to the third one, you're going to get a much bigger laugh, because humor stacks and humor is about momentum. And that's what Allen is understanding here. He's understanding that once he's got that win with his humor, he's then got to squeeze that orange and get as much juice out of it as possible.
I found another NBA player, Allen Iverson, of the Philadelphia 76ers. At 6 feet tall, he was playing fearlessly among the giants. After watching him dominate the NBA in 2000s, I made another bold decision to change my name into Allen. Allen Ang. And ever...
So here we have callback humor. About 60 seconds ago, Allen talked about changing his name to Michael after a basketball player. Now he's talking about changing his name to Allen after a basketball player. Remember, I was just talking about humor being about momentum and stacking on top of each other. The callback is where you use previous humor, previous momentum, previous connection to fuel into another point of humor and another point of connection. When Allen talks about changing his name to Allen, it's even funnier because we heard about him changing his name to Michael early in the speech, in this case 60 seconds ago. So we've got that callback humor. In this 60-second period, Allen delivers 3 different bits of humor, changing his name to Michael, aiming for that 1 foot more, and then changing his name to Allen. And he's created this little mini narrative in the speech. It's come full circle, that he's so desperate to be a basketball player. And he's delivering this desperation, this aspiration in a humorous way. It's connecting with us. It's relatable, because we can think of times where we looked up to people and we wanted to be this person and we had these big dreams as well. So Allen uses humor really well in this 60-second period to build that connection, build that rapport, build that relatability and likability, because later on he's going to have some more serious messaging. And by the time he gets that serious messaging, he wants to have built that connection, rapport, relatability, likability. So we listen to his serious message towards the end of the speech.
All those NBA live games now became online play. All those NBA tickets now became vouchers for milk powder and diapers. And all those NBA athletic skills became analyzing different kinds of baby cries. And to make things worse,
it would not be a speech worth its salt if we didn't talk about the rule of three at some point. So here we have a rule of three, and Allen is using the rule of three as a juxtaposition. He's making a comparison between here's what my dream life looks like, and here's what my reality life looks like. And he's showing the comparison. So there's the link, it's the online, it's the tickets, vouchers, it's the analytics, analyzing. So there's lots of different ways to use the rule of three. That's what makes it such a brilliant, versatile tool and technique, and it's why you'll see it in basically any decent speech that you ever watch. It's going to have the rule of three at some point. So here Allen is using the rule of three. We're approaching the halfway point of the speech, and this is where he's starting to change the narrative and shift it from, he's been talking about his dream, and now he's starting to shift it into, well, this is where I wanted my life to go, and here's the path that life has taken me down instead. And this rule of three is helping to make that transition at this key point, to take us from this is what I expected to this is where I am.
this young adult dream, gone. But I remain hopeful as I entered into my mid-30s. Like many,
you'll see that throughout this speech, Allen has a big timeline to cover. He's got to cover from being a young child all the way up to the present day of, I believe, late 30s, or he might have just turned 40. That's a 40-year timeline that he's got to cover in 7 minutes. You'll see that the way that he does this to help move through the timeline is he anchors the timeline on stage. When he wants to go to the furthest point in the past, when he was a child, he goes all the way to his stage right, most importantly, the audience stage left. Most people in the world, or many people in the world, see time in a linear fashion, going from left to right, like we're reading it. So as Allen moves through time and moves along stage, it's like he's moving along that imaginary timeline. So the audience can track, okay, he's a child now, he's in his early adulthood now, he's in his later adulthood now. So as well as using the words to paint the picture, this is how old I was in the early noughties, saying the times, he's also showing the time as well. Don't just show and don't just tell, do both, because both is going to anchor that timeline a lot stronger. You never want your audience to get lost in a speech at any time. Wait, hang on, is this when he was in his 20s or is this now? Because then the audience will go into their heads, they'll be taken out of the speech, and they'll lose that emotional connection with you in that moment. You don't want your audience to be confused, and what Allen is doing here is he's helping to anchor that timeline so the audience never get lost in the time that he's in. They stay connected to the emotional moment that he's in.
that night, I asked my wife, "Are you happy? Have I given you a better life? Are you proud of me?" Gentle but firm, she replied.
This was brilliant delivery of the questions right here. It's one of my favorite parts of the speech. If it wasn't for the end of the speech, this would be my favorite part of the speech. The way that Allen delivers those questions, you can really feel the heaviness and the emotion in that. Are you happy? And there's tension in that pause. What's the answer? What if the answer's no? And he does that with these 3 successive questions, and he gives those questions time to breathe. And that's something that's really difficult to do when you've got a time limit of 7 minutes 30, and people get disqualified even at the finals for going over that 7 minutes 30. To allow yourself to not speak, to allow the words that you've said to land with your audience. Brilliant use of questions here. When you ask questions in a speech, you've got to give your audience time to process and think about them, to process the emotion that comes with them. In this case, we're hearing about his questions and his dialogue, and we want to feel the emotion behind that, the fear, the regret, the guilt, all these swirling emotions that might be coming up there. And when you're asking questions to the audience, you want to give them time to reflect and process and respond themselves. Brilliant execution of the pause here. Those 3 questions, one after the other, and letting that silence do the work of the emotion of those questions.
You have put a roof above our head. You have put food on the table for our family. You have raised 2 beautiful children who look up to you as a role model. And most important of all, you have the most amazing, brilliant, intelligent women as your wife.
Great use of humor again here, and a different utilization of the humor in this instance. Allen has just had this emotionally deep moment of the story. He's asking those questions we just talked about, and there's that emotional depth and heaviness that comes in there. And Allen really wants us to feel the emotion in that moment. But he doesn't want us to get dragged down and stuck in emotional depth for the rest of the speech. What he does here, by using this humor, it's just like that release of the tension, and gets that relief laugh, like, oh, okay, right, okay, we can feel good again, we can laugh again. And that helps lift the audience up, because we're now at 5 minutes in the speech, and what Allen is thinking about is he's wanting to uplift that audience towards the end. So we go into that deep, challenging, difficult emotion, we feel it, we resonate with it, we connect with it, but we don't stay with it. Now Allen is taking us up and creating the uplift of the speech, and the way to kickstart that, the way to put the charges on the battery, if you like, is again utilizing a skill he's used so often in the speech. That little bit of humor, but instead of using that humor as a form of connection or rapport building like he was doing earlier, he's now using this humor as an emotional tool, as a trigger, as a transition to build towards that uplifting ending.
While I chase all those big, wild dreams, I tend to forget the quieter dreams, the smaller dreams that have already come true. The dream of becoming a husband, the dream of becoming a father, this matters just as much.
I really liked this reframe of the dreams here. Remember I said at the start of the video that I thought this was quite a simple speech. And again, I didn't want simple to sound like I was being derogatory or flippant here. What Allen did was he took a simple speech in terms of the follow your dream speech. We have heard this speech so much. I wanted to do this thing, I worked really hard, and when I worked really hard, I managed to do it. That's the follow your dream speech. You've heard that loads before. But what Allen does here is he changes the script of that. So it's this follow the dream speech. And see if this speech had ended up with Allen actually becoming an NBA player. I don't think we would have found it so interesting. It'd be like, oh yeah, very good. So you wanted to become an NBA player and you did become an NBA player. That's awesome, well done. But actually what we see here is we see the reframing of the follow your dreams. That in the process of following his dreams, Allen discovered new dreams. He discovered dreams that he had already accomplished and he hadn't given himself enough credit for. That to me is a lot more of a relatable message than looking at someone being like, wow, you managed to become a professional athlete and here I am sitting on my sofa trying to motivate myself to go to the gym. So this, I followed my dreams and I did it, it sometimes isn't the most relatable speeches. But I'm sure you watching this, me watching this, we had things that we wanted to do as a child and life didn't quite work out in exactly that way. I'm still trying to become the world famous author that I wanted to be as a child. It hasn't happened, and you know what? It probably isn't going to happen. But that's okay, because I found different dreams along the way. I found different things that sparked me. When I was a kid, I didn't have a dream to be involved in public speaking, to get involved in Toastmasters and compete in these contests, but I am now. That's a new dream for me. And I'm happy to have found that new dream. And I'm sure you have the same thing as well. There were things you wanted to do as a child, and that hasn't worked out. But when you grow up to be an adult, you found different dreams. You found different things that bring you that spark, bring you that passion, bring you that enthusiasm. And that's what you follow now. And that's what Allen has found in this speech. And I love this reframe in that moment, talking about just because we have different dreams to what we had as a child doesn't make those dreams any less valid. That's a really relatable message. It's a really important message. And it's how Allen has a twist, a unique perspective and insight on the traditional follow your dreams speech. And that's what makes this speech stand out. Not because it's grandiose and look at me, I managed to follow this big dream, but actually because of its simplicity, its everyday experience that I'm sure every audience member watching this speech has. That's what a speech is about. A speech is not about sharing your own personal experiences. Look at me, I wanted to be an NBA player and I did it. It's about speaking to the audience's experience. Maybe you had a big dream to be something and you haven't made that. But what are your dreams now? And how can you keep fulfilling those?
This August in Philadelphia, United States. 27 years later, my dream of representing Brunei on the world stage, my dream of visiting Philadelphia, the city of my hero, Allen Ang, all came true while transiting through Japan.
Sorry, my video is completely over Allen at that point, but I thought I'd make the most of it and have a bit of fun with it. What I actually want to look at is not me trying to do this weird two-person thing with Allen. What I actually want to focus on is, I love this conclusion coming in here. This is the plot twist at the end that I mentioned at the beginning of the video. That actually, I was just talking about, it's okay if you don't achieve your big dream that you had as a kid because you rethink and you discover different dreams along the way. What I love about this is there's almost then this double plot twist of, look, okay, it's about reframing and redefining your dreams. But then actually here, Allen achieved his dream anyway. But he didn't achieve it in the way that he expected. It was this very meta ending. Can you imagine? Firstly, he's incredibly lucky to be in those final 32 to make the semi-finals of public speaking. Like, that is fantastic. Did I just say 32? I think I meant to say 28. to get into the semi-finals at the World Championship of Public Speaking, that's awesome. And he did it in the year that it's held in Philadelphia. Last year, it was in Anaheim. Next year, it's going to be in Vancouver. There's so many years where he could have entered this, could have done all that hard work and done amazing to get to the semi-finals, and it not be in Philadelphia. But this year, it is. Like, what a serendipitous, fortuitous plot twist right at the end of this speech, that actually he did manage to achieve his dream, but he didn't achieve it in the way that he expected. And there's almost this kind of second message that comes through of, first of all, it doesn't matter if you didn't achieve that childhood dream. It's about redefining and refocusing on the dreams that matter to you as an adult now. But it's also recognizing that sometimes life doesn't give you what you want, but it gives you what you need. Sometimes your dreams do come true, but they don't come true in the way that you thought they would. And that's such a cool meta ending at the end of this speech. And again, I'm going to come back to the idea of this speech being simple. We've got a simple speech about a childhood dream, like how many people wanted to be a professional athlete, celebrity, fill in the blank. It's this really simple speech that I'm sure a lot of people could probably deliver themselves. Well, here's what I wanted to be. You know, if I was doing my version of the speech, I'll talk about, well, I wanted to be a famous author when I was young. And then talking about how life changes and life gets in the way. Like, everyone could do that, right? But then bringing in this final moment of actually, here I am in this meta portion of the speech where actually everything that I've described up until this point, it actually did come true. And it's coming true because I'm standing here delivering this speech. And the only way that it could come true is by me standing here and delivering this speech. So I thought this was a really lovely speech to listen to. Had that kind of double plot twist at the end. And it just goes to show that no speech is original in terms of messagings. Like, the messages that are there, we've got all the key messages in life. The follow your dreams speech is a timeless speech, but you've got to find your own way of delivering the timeless speeches. And that's what I think Allen really does here. Allen finds his unique way. He is the only person who could deliver this speech because he is the, I'm sure he's the only person, in fact, he is the only person from Brunei who wanted to be a professional basketball player, was too short, wanted to meet his hero in Philadelphia, and he managed to get to Philadelphia, the place of his hero, and represent his country on a national stage. It just ended up being the World Championship of Public Speaking and not the National Basketball Association. What a cool story. What a cool plot twist. Really enjoyed listening to this speech and the simple but highly effective way that Allen presented it. In just a moment, I'm going to look at a couple of areas in which Allen could have improved his speech even more than what it was already. But just before I do, a quick word about my coaching services. If you've got a big speech coming up, like Allen's speech at the World Championship of Public Speaking, and you feel that you need a little bit more help and support to get it to where you want to be, then this is where my coaching can come in and help you. I've put a link in the video description to my LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out to me there, send me a connection request, send me a message. Give me an idea of what you're working on with your speaking, what are some of the challenges that you're having, and also what are some of the aspirations for your speaking as well. And we can look at my coaching services and how that can help you get your speech and get your speaking to where you want it to be. You'll see a little bit of a sample of my coaching when I look at improving Allen's speeches, or at least my suggestions for improving his speech, a little bit later in this video. Quick disclaimer on how I'm going to be approaching this suggestion section. When I'm analyzing other speeches, I will go through blow by blow. I'll nitpick. I'll point out every single little thing. Sometimes that's more than half the video is offering improvements and suggestions on a particular speech. That's not the approach that I take with Toastmasters speeches. There's a few reasons for this. The first reason is that people in Toastmasters, we're just everyday people. We're not world leaders, we're not celebrities, we're not people who are used to being in the limelight. And I always want to be respectful of that when I'm analyzing another Toastmaster. As a fellow Toastmaster myself, this is someone who I don't know, I don't have a personal relationship with. So I always try to be respectful and thoughtful in the way that I'm offering suggestions on someone's speech. The second reason is that by the time you've got to the World Championship, these three speakers who I'm looking at in these series, they are going to be exhausted. They have put in so much work over the last 12 months to create not one, but two different speeches for this level. And by the time you take this speech to this final level, you've worked on it so much, you've had so much feedback on it, you really just want to park it and rest the speech, at least for a little while. And perhaps you're going to park it and rest it forever. So the last thing they want to hear is loads of extra feedback coming their way. So I'm going to minimize how much that I'm offering in this video. And then thirdly and finally is an acknowledgement that Allen has finished in the third place in the World Championship of Public Speaking. I'm a fellow competitor as well. The World Championship of Public Speaking, it's something that I love. I love taking part in. I love watching other people take part in. I have never made it to the World Finals. Allen has. Allen has gotten ahead of me in this competition. So for me to stand and say, well, here's all the areas where I think your speech is rubbish, well, that just wouldn't make sense, would it? Because Allen has got to a place where I haven't got to in this particular competition. So for these reasons, I'm not going to nitpick and go through every single little thing about Allen's speech that I think could be edited or improved. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a focused angle with it. And I'm going to take a focus in terms of how I would evaluate a speech actually just in a regular Toastmasters club meeting. I'm going to look at one suggestion for the content of Allen's speech, what he said. And I'm going to look at one suggestion for the delivery of his speech, how he said it. And with these two suggestions, if Allen wants to do this speech in the future, or if he's wanting to enter the World Championship of Public Speaking in the future, these are some things that he could think about bringing into his future speeches. And it's also something that we can all bring into our future speeches as well, whether you're a competitor or whether you're not. So let's look at how Allen can keep his dream going with a couple more additions to his speech.
I fell in love with the game at an early age. After watching Michael Jordan make his winning shot in the 1998 NBA Finals.
Watching Michael Jordan take this winning shot, I'm pretty sure that when Michael Jordan took that winning shot, he didn't take it like this. Standing stock still, casual, one-handed. I would like Allen to bring this moment to life, to show the drama, the suspense. I want him to play out. So Michael Jordan, he's got a couple of defenders on him. He's dribbling left, he's dribbling right. He leans back. He does the trademark Michael Jordan fadeaway shot. Boom! Sinks it. Winner. I want to see that come to life. So I would like to see Allen really commit to the bit here and take us into that moment. Take us into that magic that he found as a child. Watching this athlete who almost seems to be superhuman in what he's doing and the way he's able to do it. That would allow him to fire out the blocks a lot faster. This is one of the first things that he says. So to help bring the energy, to raise the tempo of the audience, to suck them into this story that he's about to tell, I would want to see him reenact Michael Jordan a lot more. And that just gives him that little 10-second clip of he wants to be an NBA player. Well, he can relive that on stage. He can have a little bit of that motion. He can reenact that winning shot, that brought his passion and enthusiasm for the sport to life. So I think Allen could be a lot more dynamic with his retelling of this. Don't tell us about watching Michael Jordan take the winning shot. Show us.
I found another NBA player, Allen Iverson, of the Philadelphia 76ers. At 6 feet tall.
What comes into this speech later on is that Allen is getting to be in Philadelphia, the home of Allen Iverson, the place where he wanted to play, he wanted to go. Allen is in Philadelphia right now, and I would make a lot more of that in this speech. I would get some audience interaction here. You can actually hear the audience. There's a couple of people who go, whoa, yeah. I think he could really galvanize the audience here. Have some audience interaction. Say, can you give me a shout out if you're from Philly? Get the audience cheering. Can you give me a shout out if you support the, oh gosh, what's the Philadelphia team? Is it the 76ers? Whoever they are. No, damn it. I've lost it. It's gone. I can name 10 basketball teams and none of them play in Philadelphia. So he can shout out, give me a cheer if you're from Philadelphia. Give me a cheer if you're a fan of the Philadelphia team. You know, as I'm saying this, I just have in my head, I'm like, Lakers, Heat, Raptors, Celtics. I'm like, no, none of them are in Philadelphia. So have some audience interaction. Get them involved. It's such a unique opportunity. Allen is actually bringing in a home speech here. He's almost got like a little bit of home advantage. And considering the fact that he's traveled so far away to be here, to give yourself that little bit of home advantage when you're at this stage where it's the 1%ers, it's the micro differences that make the difference between placing and not placing, and where you place in the World Championship of Public Speaking. You want to try and give yourself that 1%er. Try and generate a little bit of home advantage, because he's got this relatability. He's building this rapport. He's doing this really good job. He's making the audience laugh. And I think if he doubled down on that a little bit more, get really engaged with the audience, that could have given him that extra couple percenter. He's finished third on this occasion. Who knows, if he could get some more audience engagement, he could build some more energy, not just for this part of the speech, but for future parts of the speeches. When he tells his next jokes, are the audience going to laugh a little bit more because he's built that connection and relationship with them? I think this was, to use a sports analogy, I think this was such an open basket. I think Allen really needed to take it. Try and get some home advantage. Try and work in this Philadelphia meme a lot more. He's worked it in a little bit in the speech. And I think if he'd found every single opportunity to really squeeze that orange, that could have helped him build this even stronger relationship with the audience, get his speech to ultimately land more and be more impactful. And who knows, maybe that makes a little bit of the difference when it comes down to the judges making that final decision. Overall, this is, again, a simple speech, but there is beauty in simplicity. I think Allen did a wonderful job bringing this all together. And I think what Allen showcased is he is someone who is living the dream. If you're watching this, you have a dream for public speaking, whether it's the World Championship of Speaking, whether it's another stage elsewhere in the world. And what we're seeing here is Allen getting to live that dream. And he's demonstrating how you put together a speech that makes the most of that dream, makes the most of that opportunity. How are you going to make the most of your dream and the most of your opportunity on stage?